Hello, Waffle lovers, and welcome to another episode of Whatever Flips Your Waffle here on 365sportscast.com. I'm your host, Mark Domeyer, coming to you, as always, from the bunker deep in the heart of southern Minnesota. We have plenty to talk about this week. We can mix in all different Minnesota sports, from the Vikings' exciting win to the Gophers' plummet to the Timberwolves' wild and the end of the Twins' season right around the corner. I'm glad you decided to tune in this week, listen to the talk about Minnesota sports. Welcome to those of you who tune in each and every week, and welcome to those of you who might be checking things out for the first time. Sit back, relax, prepare yourself for another helping of Waffle's Syrup Optional. After this brief commercial break, we'll be back with our Wisdom with Wyatt segment, and then you'll want to make sure you stick around for the entire show, a special announcement at the end. There's enough bad news in the world. Where can you turn for some good news? The NRHEG Star Eagle, of course. Your area newspaper, the Star Eagle, focuses on the events and people that make our area a great place to live. The NRHEG Star Eagle, your good news newspaper. To subscribe or advertise, contact Eli at 507-463-8112 or email steagle@hickorytech.net. Again, if you subscribe, you get to read the Waffle Flippers column each and every week right there in the NRHEG Star Eagle. Again, 507-463-8112 or email steagle@hickorytech.net. It's time once again for Wisdom with Wyatt here on Whatever Flips Your Waffle. Wyatt Grosskreutz with us. And again, a Vikings game that takes us down to the wire and makes life interesting, but they come away with a win.
A win is a win. I'll take it however I can get it. It was ugly, but if you beat the teams you're supposed to beat, then good things will happen.
And it feels like they're kind of the first game of the year. We talked about when they beat the Packers, and you have the whole offseason to plan for the Packers, and they just put together a dominating performance. Now in the normal week-to-week grind, I think Kevin O'Connell is realizing, I still have to put together a complete game plan, because it just doesn't seem like this offense is moving as smoothly as we would hope it would under Kevin O'Connell.
I think it's growing pains. I mean, that happens with every rookie coach. You're never going to have a guy come in and be like perfect. He's still, and there's times where he's learning how to clock manage. There's times when he's learning how to do certain things, calling, and he's, like he said, this is his first time calling plays, but I thought he's been good so far. I mean, it doesn't have to be about how well he's called a game. When you watch this team play, they obviously love playing for him. So it's a massive upgrade anyway.
Yeah, you mentioned the clock management. It felt very Mike Zimmer-like at the end of the first half, where you have 3 timeouts and there's, I think, 28 seconds on the clock. Call a timeout, because you kept yourself from at least one more play that you could have run.
Yeah, I wish he would have called a timeout in that situation. And what was the head coach for Denver? He hired a guy to help him with those things.
Right.
And I kind of wish every head coach would do that, because then it's just one less thing they have to worry about. They have a guy, hey, call a timeout, and then he calls one.
Right. I thought the Vikings had somebody like that. They got 5,700 coaches on the sideline, but
I have no idea if they do or don't. But if they do, then he obviously should be fired, because
right. That's an easy one.
That should not happen. And if there is none, then oh well. Kevin O'Connell's got 100 things to worry about. That's one thing I'm not going to get mad about.
So here's something to worry about, is the ability to finish a drive. You kick 5 field goals, and it's hard to even, again, there's that rhythm, there's that whatever, but it feels like Kirk doesn't have enough time at times. I mean, he got sacked 3 times on Sunday. It felt like he was under pressure more than he needed to be, more than one would hope he would be. Again, that offensive line, not quite there. I mean, we're seeing Ed Ingram's improving, and he's a rookie. But even Brian O'Neill got beat badly one time on Sunday. I suppose it'll happen. You just kind of figure he's consistent usually.
Well, I don't want to bash the offensive line too much, or the offense in general, because number one, Brian O'Neill, is one of the best right tackles in football. And when you look who he was going against, Cameron Jordan, that's no one is ever going to go up against Cameron Jordan and win 100% of the time. I don't blame him for any of that. Ed Ingram is a rookie. He's getting better. Garrett Bradbury is getting better.
He is, yeah.
Christian Darrisaw in year 2, he's looking like a potential franchise left tackle.
Right.
They're going to have growing pains. It happens. The offense, again, I thought it looked better because after the Green Bay game, you had 2 straight first quarters where you just didn't look that great. But then they finally had a really good first drive again.
Yep.
So that's signs of Kevin O'Connell finally making adjustments and getting better at that. And let's give credit where credit is due. They have a really good defense down in New Orleans.
They do. Yeah, Cam Jordan, you mentioned, he was outstanding, just whether it's run stopping or putting pressure on Kirk. Marshawn Lattimore, now when you look at the box score and you say Justin Jefferson had 10 receptions for 147 yards, Lattimore must have been terrible, but he wasn't. In some ways, that was, if you could have a quiet 147 yards, it felt like Jefferson, he had some big catches and everything, but Lattimore made some plays. How many yards would he have had if it would have been, well, anybody except Darius Slay? But, I thought Lattimore overall played well, but he's going to need some help on Justin Jefferson too.
Yeah, it did feel like it felt like a quiet day for JJ because he just, I don't know, it wasn't like the Green Bay game where it kept happening over and over and over. It was strung throughout the game, which I'm fine with. He still played amazing. But you're right, it felt like that Saints defense made a lot of the plays they were supposed to make. That they are a very good defense. They're a well-coached defense. I like Dennis Allen as the head coach there. He's been a great defensive coordinator for a while. And I can tell you right now, if the Saints are going to win games this year, it's going to be because of that defense.
Of course. Yeah, their offense. This is where I get a little disappointed, the Saints without their starting quarterback, without their starting receiver, without starting running back, without one of their top receivers. It felt like the Vikings should have won this by more. But I wonder, too, they made a big deal about the Saints flew over to London, Monday or Tuesday right away?
Yeah.
And the Vikings waited until after practice on Thursday, giving them less time to sort of adjust to timing and everything. I don't know if that I've never traveled overseas. I have no idea if that makes a difference, but I wonder if they were just a little bit jet-lagged and maybe that led to some of their slogging through at times. It's hard to tell.
Maybe. I mean, that is always a factor, especially when you're going overseas to London. I mean, it's not easy to play on the road and then play in a different country. No. I mean, I will cut slack for that because it's just tough with all that time change. Yeah. But at the same time, when Jameis Winston, Alvin Kamara, and Michael Thomas are not playing, I don't care what defense it is, they should not score 25 points.
Well, and Latavius Murray looked like his old Viking self, how he used to play for the Vikings, just straight up running, plowing through. That was impressive, I thought. I mean, he's getting up there in age a little bit, but, the guy stepped up. I really think Chris Olave, he's going to be the real deal. You're going to hear a lot about him. And he almost came down with another big catch kind of toward the end. This guy's got some real talent.
Olave looked amazing. He has real speed, really good hands. His route running is awesome. Everything about him is just amazing. He looks like, and he acts like the real deal. And he's only been in 4 games so far. Now, obviously, it's really early and it's such a small sample size. But I do think Olave is going to be one of the best, if not the best receivers out of that draft.
Yeah. Well, if Michael Thomas could ever stay healthy, well, it'd be hard. It's like having Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. That talent level there. Thielen played pretty well. Looked like he got banged up, but boy, give him credit because he was hobbling around and staying on the field, saying, "We got to win this game."
Yeah, it looked like a high ankle sprain at one point, and those are not easy to play with.
No.
They hurt. They linger too, which sucks. But I think Adam Thielen he loves playing for this coach, and he said that he loves the new scheme. He loves everything about it, and that's probably what a lot of these players think, and it's helping win these close games. I saw something the other day. The difference between last year's team and this year's team is results.
Yeah.
When you look at this team, we're playing we haven't played great the last 2 weeks, but we're finding ways to win.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that matters. I would rather us play 17 games terribly, but win 15 of those games, than play all 17 games perfectly, but we only win like 5 or 6.
Right. You're right, because last year, these were the games they lost. They found a way to lose. When Greg Joseph missed the extra point, that would have made the Saints have to go score a touchdown. And I thought, overtime. I mean, that's just your thought. He's going to go overtime. But, you kind of look at that. It's always the what if. But if he hits that and the Saints are forced to go for a touchdown, well, what if they score it? How much time would have been left for the Vikings to try to kick a tying field goal? Then it goes the other way around. And you sit and think a little bit like, well, wait a minute. That would have been we'll never know. But just the way that the Vikings, for instance, gave up that big chunky yardage to let the Saints have a shot at a field goal to tie it at the end, defensively, was a little frustrating. And again, that defense didn't seem to put enough pressure on Andy Dalton. And what I'm reading is Ed Donatel just doesn't like to blitz much. And I'm thinking, well, but sometimes you have to.
I know with the defense, obviously it was a worry part of this team. Like, people were not confident in the defense, and it's starting to show. We're just not that great on defense. Mm-hmm. And these veterans are getting slower, they're getting older, they're not moving around like they used to. And I know we're only 4 weeks in, but Ed Donatel, you are almost on the hot seat in my book at this point. His game plans have been awful. The shell coverage against the Eagles was a terrible idea. Yeah. And then you let the Lions carve. The last 2 weeks, you've let Jared Goff and Andy Dalton carve up your secondary. That shouldn't be happening.
Two guys who are above average, but not great.
They're guys that should be able to throw for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns and probably a pick. But they shouldn't be marching down the field every single drive.
Right.
The Lions, I understand a little bit more because they have a little more talent. Andy Dalton's old. He's not that great anymore. And there are times he made awful throws.
Yeah.
But we just can't find a way to stop it. And then I know it's still early. This coaching staff is still learning. But Ed Donatel is a veteran at this point.
Yeah, he's been around for a long time.
He needs to either scrap what he's been doing or teach it better, because it's not working.
And, I wonder a little bit, too. But part of this is we've got some all-pro players there. I wonder if we'll see in the drafts in the years to come drafting players that fit his scheme better. Of course, the problem is you got 2 guys you drafted this year, and Lewis Cine fractured his leg in a horrible incident on a special teams. He's done. Andrew Booth hasn't seen the field yet because he's dealing with a quad issue. So it looked like they were trying to go for guys that maybe are going to fit a little bit of their scheme a little bit better, but time will tell. We said at the start of the year, we just need an average defense, because we think the offense is going to score a lot of points. Well, when they're not, then we need our defense to be a little bit above average. And again, we're nitpicking. We're 3-1, tied, well, technically in first place because we beat the Packers, who somehow also are slogging along. The division right now is there for you to take if you're the Vikings, because the Packers have not looked great. They almost lost to a third-string quarterback in New England. And, the Lions lose a shootout in Seattle, and the Bears, well, we'll see next week, because they just look really bad.
Yeah, this team is going to get better. I think once KOC starts getting into the groove of things, the offense is going to be fine. I'm not worried about the offense. If we get to week 5 or 6 or 7 and we're starting to say the same thing on the offense where they just can't finish drives, then it might be time to worry a little bit whether it's KOC, whether it's Kirk or something. I don't want to blame anybody yet on the offense. The defense, if that can get better, this team is a team that can be dangerous, because they have the ability to score a lot of points.
Well, this is what I look at. So we'll play the Bears next week, and we'll play everybody else in the NFC North once. So what happens the second time you play those teams? That's where it really shows your coaching chops. What adjustments have you made based on what you learned the first time you played the teams? And if they beat the Bears next week and are 3-0 in the division, that's huge. But can you go 4-0 and 5? Can you beat the teams a second time? Because the reality is, you should be. The Bears are just not good. You should beat them twice. The Lions, I think they're going to keep getting better. But really, probably. I think that if you're going to win this division, you have to go 5-1. Like you might lose at Green Bay in January because it's at Green Bay in January, but even the Packers aren't great. They have big concerns on their offense as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a cakewalk with Chicago because we just were in London. We're going to be tired. The time change is not going to help us. But, yes, it's a game you should win. Chicago is not good. If they had, like, Matt Nagy, I would say maybe this is a lot closer than we think because it's a rookie coach coming off a jet-lagged week against a somewhat veteran coach who was bad, but a veteran's coach.
Right.
But Matt Eberflus, he's been pretty good so far, but he's still a rookie head coach with a bad team. I think the Vikings should win this game handedly, but the problem is the jet lag part.
Right.
I don't know how much it's going to affect them.
At least it's at home, and playing New Orleans in London instead of the Superdome, which is, or whatever they call it down there now.
That's the biggest thing they came away with on this schedule is not having to go to the Superdome.
Because I could hear, and I commented to my wife as we were watching it, I said, that's the Saints PA announcer. Like, he flew over there. You could tell because it was the home field, like, PA announcer, which is cool, and that's what you should do. But, we've talked about some of the coaches. I think the coach that we should be focusing on in a positive way, special teams have looked good. I mean, Joseph's going to miss a kick here and there, but the fake punt was run fantastically and at a crucial part of the game. And just their coverage most of the time, they're getting down there. If a guy returns it, he's not going to get very far.
Yeah, I like the special teams a lot more this year. Greg Joseph has been amazing. What has he missed? 2 kicks so far? And
2 56-yard field goals and then the extra point this week.
I'm not too mad about it.
No.
I mean, it's not affected anything. We're 3-1. He makes a lot. He made 5 field goals on Sunday.
Yeah.
That's really good. You asked him to do that last year. He probably misses 2 of them.
Yeah.
And it probably was a combination of Zimmer and the head coach. But, yeah, it looks a lot better. And like I said, I think it's the overall culture. Like with KOC, everything is just better. Because these last 2 weeks, when you watch this team play, whether it's Greg Joseph wandering out there or the offense wandering out there, the defense wandering out there, you feel like we're always in the game.
Right.
So that's the energy he's bringing has changed a lot.
Times are changing. We love it here in Vikings territory. And hopefully, by the end of Sunday, about 3 o'clock, the Vikings will move to 4-1. That's some more wisdom with Wyatt. Next up here on the program, we turn from the Vikings win this week and look ahead to the Chicago Bears next week, back home at US Bank Stadium. Joining me, I've got Jack Schad. I went to college with Jack's mom back in the day at Winona State, and Jack is a big Bears fan. Jack, first of all, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Tell me, what's it like living here in the great state of Minnesota, but being a die-hard Chicago Bears fan? What do you take some razzing at school and stuff, I assume?
Oh, definitely. It's a lot easier when they're winning.
Right.
But, you got to wear the Fields jersey after a win,
Okay. Which is kind of hit and miss this year so far. When
my friends call them Bustin' Fields.
Okay. I can work with that. Yeah. When the season started, and last year when Fields got out there, you saw some flashes, you saw some potential and stuff. What kind of expectations did you have as a Bears fan this year for him and the team as a whole?
Well, I expected him to take some steps forward, which he has not really shown. I expect a better offense than we're getting from Luke Getsy. Thought he'd run more of what he ran with Rodgers, and it's just not happening right now. The defense has been improved, which was expected with Eberflus coming in as a defensive mind. But yeah, it's not really what I expected. And this week's loss was not good against the Giants. That hurt a little bit.
Yeah, it's, and you talk about maybe Fields hasn't made those kind of steps yet that you were hoping for. And today he only threw for 174 yards. But here's a more telling sign to me for a mobile quarterback like he is. He got sacked 6 times today by the Giants defense. Is this just him holding on to the ball too long? Is it an offensive line problem? What's going on that he gets sacked that many times?
It's an offensive line problem, sort of. Sam Mushpusher is still the center. When Lucas Patrick moves back to the center, he's dealing with a broken hand, so he can't snap the ball yet. But when he moves back to center, it'll be improved. The other problem is he changed his throwing mechanics. Now it's to shorten it, and he's just not being accurate. So he's not trusting himself. He tends to hold the ball longer that way.
Okay.
And then it's just icky. I don't know. He doesn't look right, and he fumbles so often.
Right. So like just ball maintenance, ball control, the little things that you should know coming into the NFL.
Yeah, he does, and he is not playing with the same swagger he played with at Ohio State.
Right. Well, I guess if you're at Ohio State, you just tend to have swagger just by walking on campus, probably. But it's such a huge jump to the NFL. And as much as you look at programs like Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia that produce so many NFL players, it's still a big leap. And maybe did Fields get thrown into a little bit too quickly? Or do we rush these NFL quarterbacks just because we pay them so much money? It's like you feel that pressure to get them in there. Maybe they'd be better served sitting and learning for a couple of years, or is this just?
They did try to sit him, and then Dalton got injured.
you can't win, right? When you don't have any other options. And even look across the way at the Giants today, where Daniel Jones gets hurt, Tyrod Taylor comes in, then he gets hurt. It's tough being a quarterback in the NFL.
It is.
But you did talk about the defense too, and the defense certainly has been, even if you don't count the Rain Bowl that they had against the Giants, which levels the playing field for everybody.
Yeah.
But they're holding teams, and doing a nice job. And granted, you have a Saquon Barkley who rushes for 146 yards today. He seems to be coming back into his own. But overall, if you hold a team to 20 points or fewer in the NFL, you should have a good chance to win. You just have to have the offense to go with it.
Yeah, you have to have a somewhat competent offense.
Yeah. Who is standing out on this Bears defense that we as Vikings fans next week might hear a lot out of?
Well, Roquan Smith, you watch the game, it seems like he's on every tackle, but you should know about him.
Right.
Eddie Jackson's coming back. He had his third pick of the year today, which is his second highest in his career.
Okay.
Total. And Jalen Johnson, he has been locked down. I think he's targeted, coming into this game, he was targeted 6 times all year. They're just not throwing it near him because none of the other cornerbacks are good, but he's also just that good. Okay.
So is that a guy you see possibly covering Justin Jefferson?
I'd imagine he'd cover Justin Jefferson.
Okay.
Yeah, he probably would. And then Kindle Vildor would be on Adam Thielen, which I'd expect a big game from Adam Thielen if he's covered by Vildor.
Well, we'll see. Thielen got a little banged up today too. He kind of toughed it out, but who knows? It's the NFL, and what we've seen this year is when you have somebody really good that can cover Jefferson, you can really shut him down. Certainly, the Eagles did that for a time today. Marshawn Lattimore did that for the Saints, but after a while, he lost a couple steps and Jefferson got the better of him. But I don't, when I look ahead to next week, and certainly playing at home always benefits a team. So the Vikings coming home, albeit after a trip over to London, should have the advantage. But I don't necessarily see them bursting out just because of this Bears' strong defense. What's it going to take for the Bears to beat the Minnesota Vikings at US Bank next week?
The run game on offense, really, and shutting down Jefferson and Cook. They can do that. I think they've got a shot. If you can control the run game better than you did this weekend, Saquon, and then shut down Jefferson. And I don't know if Montgomery will be back. If he is, pound the rock with him. And Herbert's looks good too. So. Well,
I was going to say Montgomery's a really good running back, and missing him certainly hurts. Herbert's more incapable. On the other side too, when I look at it, the Vikings secondary is very suspect right now, and if they can get the ball to Darnell Mooney, man, he can make some stuff happen too, and he's a pretty exciting receiver for the Bears.
Yeah, he had that 56-yard catch today. It was a great play.
But is it kind of hit or miss for him sometimes, where it's a big play or not much at all?
It really is. he's really good at double moves, which says something about his route running, but anything else, he just gets locked down really easily, and he can get lost. He's a little short.
Okay. And that doesn't help with this quarterback, too. You know, and I look at this and I say, well, geez, if the Vikings could ever put pressure, they're struggling a little bit on putting pressure on quarterbacks. If you got after Justin Fields, you'd be fine. But I have some worries about that. Jalen Hurts as a mobile quarterback, to use a really bad pun, hurt the Vikings. And I'm a little concerned about Justin Fields doing that too. But at the end of the day, when you say, okay, I got to lay it on the line and make a prediction for next week, how do you see next week unfolding between the Bears and Vikings?
Probably Vikings 27, Bears 17.
It's right in the range I was thinking. I was thinking about a 10-point Vikings win. Of course, I thought that this week too, and they had to hang on at the end to beat the Saints because it is the NFL.
Double doink.
Yeah, the double doink, and you Bears fans are well familiar with that.
It's nice to see it happen to a different team.
That's right. And you know, as a Vikings fan too, you know that we have our fair share of kicking woes over the years. Plenty of those, and so as Lutz lined up to try the 61-yarder today, my wife and I figured we were for sure headed to overtime, and could hardly believe our eyes that somebody else had bad luck. But it's the Bears. I look at this and I say, this would be a notch in their belt. They would show themselves as being potentially on the rise up if they could beat the Vikings. But the way it's looking right now, it's more of a Vikings-Packers race in the NFC North. I thought the Lions would have a little bit better record by now, but they've got the offense and just not the defense. So whatever the Lions and Bears, that could be quite an interesting matchup down the line when those two teams meet.
Yeah, good offense against good defense.
Yeah. So who knows? But any other thoughts as we go into next week? You're even as a Bears fan, you have to be realistic and say probably have a tough road to hoe. But by the end of the season, if Fields just isn't showing it, what can this Bears team do? Is it time to start looking another direction, or do you keep working on him and hope for the future?
If the offense is continuing to struggle and they put up 12 points every single week, I think you fire the offensive coordinator and Luke Getsy. After 1 year, it's just a little crazy, but it's just not working. And then I think you give Fields one more shot with the new offense, which would be a little hard to do his third offense. But I think he has the raw tools and the scramble ability that you can't just give up on him that easy.
Right.
And it's also hard to find that it's hard to find NFL quarterbacks. So maybe you draft a guy and he sits on the fields. I think the way the offense is going, something needs to change.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll have to see. It's always exciting whenever there's an NFC North battle, and we'll see if our predictions are correct that the Vikings can come out on top by a couple of scores. And after that, best of luck to your Bears. We'll see them again down the line. The last game of the season will be a little chilly at Soldier Field, and I'll tell you what, I'm scared of that game if it matters for the Vikings, because playing at Soldier Field in January, that's never a good thing, and the Vikings just traditionally don't play very well there. Of course, you hope it means a lot too. We'll just have to.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It might mean a draft pick.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's they might be packing it in by that point. Well, Jack Schad, thanks for joining us this week on Whatever Flips Your Waffle.
Yeah, thank you.
When I started this program back at the end of January and was trying to figure out my way through this and what would work well to put segments in, I used to start with a little bit of an opinion piece on whatever was happening in sports, and I thought, let's bring that back for this week. I wrote a piece for the NRHEG Star Eagle, one of our supporters, our advertisers here on the show, and I wrote about the Minnesota Twins a little bit. I thought I'd share that opinion with my listeners, just in case you don't read the paper. You should, but in case you don't, this is what I have to say about the Twins season. Now that the Minnesota Twins have sunk out of the playoff race for the second year in a row, rumblings have intensified on social media to fire manager Rocco Baldelli and front office mavens Thad Levine and Derek Falvey. I'm here to tell you that's the wrong take. Do I think Baldelli is a great manager, destined to get a statue outside Target Field someday? No. But I also like to look at his overall record, which includes 2 division titles already. I don't like his over-reliance on advanced analytics, even though most of Major League Baseball uses them. A notable exception is Terry Francona, manager of the Cleveland Guardians, the team that has won the Central Division. He goes with his gut and intuition when it counts, much like Tom Kelly used to do in winning 2 World Series titles. Think about Tom Kelly and his pitching staff in those seasons. Think about Jack Morris in Game 7 of the 91 World Series. Go with your gut sometimes. Sometimes. Not always. Sometimes. I've talked about this with numerous guests on this show. People who follow the Twins for a living are pretty much in agreement that Baldelli is not the biggest problem with this baseball team. I hate it too when he yanks a starter so they avoid going through the lineup a third time, even if that pitcher has done really well so far. I guess the numbers show that batting average goes up dramatically the third time, but I'd argue that there isn't enough data since pitchers rarely pitch in that situation. And when they do, they're just seeing a few guys and then they get yanked out much of the time. I'd rather see pitchers learn how to adjust to the batters the third time around. Don't throw the same stuff. I'd like to see them strengthen their arms to pitch more than 80 or 90 pitches as a starter. If you're becoming ineffective because you're losing steam down the stretch, you are not strong enough. But again, most Major League Baseball teams treat their pitchers the same way that the Twins do. We just see it every single day, and that's why we kind of harp on that sometimes. I wish more players knew how to bunt to move a runner into scoring position. Boy, that would have been a quick way to take care of these shifts that are going to disappear next year anyway. That would have taken care of that in a quick hurry. It'd be nice to see more steals. And that's a skill that has just as much to do with reading a pitcher as it does with speed. I can tell you that as a guy who used to steal bases and I wasn't that fast. It's about reading the pitcher. But that's not currently the Twins' way. Baldelli seems to have support in the clubhouse. Players generally like him. This season, we've even seen him shed that robotic demeanor and show emotion, likely as a result of the Twins blowing the lead in the division they held on to for most of the season. And they might end up in third place by the time this is all said and done. Injuries have doomed the Twins this season. When I first wrote this piece, there were 18 players on the injured list. 18 at the same time. That's enough to play an inter-squad game. When your outfield consists of Jake Cave, Gilberto Celestino, and Nick Gordon, you're probably not destined for the playoffs. When the 2 pitchers you trade for, Chris Paddock and Tyler Mahle, develop arm issues, that becomes a problem. When you can't hold a lead against the Cleveland Guardians at all, ever, you're not going to make the playoffs. The bullpen implosions this year have been significant, and they've become worse since pitching coach Wes Johnson left midseason to take a college coaching job. You can't understate the job he did with the staff, and I would guess, without doing a lot of research, that the team ERA has gone up since he departed. Levine and Falvey have made trades to try to bolster this team, especially when it looked like they had a shot at the playoffs. Where they have failed is providing adequate depth. Nobody could foresee this many injuries, but it really shows how depleted our farm system is and carries concerns for the future. Baldelli needs to look at his coaching staff. He's got to make some changes before next year. You can't stand pat. That's the way to show fans you are trying to improve. You need to get a third base coach who's not going to get guys thrown at the plate by a lot. You perhaps need a pitching coach, that is ready for the job. There are some changes they can make, that's for sure. Making a legitimate offer to keep shortstop Carlos Correa here is another, even if he goes somewhere else. But if you make him a really legitimate offer that makes it hard for him to turn it down, he's indicated, just got to come get me. I don't know what that number means, but if you lowball him, that doesn't tell the fan base you care enough. And improving the bullpen is imperative. You've got to do something to figure that scenario out. 2023 was always the year the Twins have been shooting for to make a run. If they fail again next year, change has to come. But if you actually thought the Twins would win the division this year prior to the season starting, then you're probably the one person who's truly disappointed. Most people did not pick the Twins to win the division. You always had hope, but in reality, I can go back and you can look at old recordings of this show where I said they'd win between 82 and 88 games and be in the running for a wild card. Well, I was off there too. They were in the running for a while, but the Central was so bad, it didn't matter. There's a lot of talent in this group. They need good health, They need some added pieces to the pitching staff to have that chance to break that playoff losing streak. When healthy, Byron Buxton was one of the best players of the game. I give him a lot of credit. He played through a lot of pain this year, but they've got to hopefully figure some stuff out so he can play 110, 120 games in a year. Jose Miranda has shown he belongs in the big leagues. Jorge Polanco is solid at second base. They have 4 starting pitchers in place for next year, provided they overcome their current health hurdles. It's hard to imagine beating the Yankees, the Astros, the Dodgers, the Cardinals, all teams who are consistently so good every year. Still, all it takes is to make the big show and get hot. That's what the 1987 team did, and maybe the 2023 Twins can do it too. We'll take one more quick break here and be back for the remainder of the show. There's a new newspaper in Waseca County. The Waseca County Pioneer is on the stands and is produced by the same group of people who put together the NRHEG Star Eagle each week. If you're looking for good news in Waseca, Janesville, or New Richland, the Waseca County Pioneer is the place to look. Check it out today, and if you're interested in a subscription, contact the folks at the paper, 507-463-8112, or email steagle@hickorytech.net. As an added bonus, if you tell them you heard this ad from the Waffle Flipper, you'll get a discounted price for a 1-year subscription of only $40. So call 507-463-8112 and tell them you heard about the Waseca County Pioneer on whatever flips your waffle. And now it's time for the State of Minnesota Sports. A little addendum onto my pontification about the Twins. When they were seemingly, for sure going to be out of things, we had talked here on the program about, hey, maybe the goal should be, let's finish over 500. Let's at least be 500 this year. That seems a realistic goal. And, of course, they go out and just, stink it up against Kansas City, Detroit, place like this. They're not going to finish over 500. They're kind of battling the White Sox a little bit. They'd have to sweep the White Sox. And by the time you listen to this, the season will be done. But they'd have to sweep the White Sox to move ahead of them and finish in second place. So that overall disappointment for a team that I expected to contend for a wild card, to be in that, 82 to 88 win range. I thought that was a realistic thing, especially adding Correa. The most they could come away with would be 80 wins. And that just doesn't cut it. I get the injuries, and I talked about that. I understand that. But they have to have some moving pieces, and some of this falls in the front office of your depth isn't there to be able to come and fill in some roles. And I really think they have to re-examine how they deal with their pitching staff. You can't have a Chris Archer who's only going to give you 4 innings. You just can't do that because it taxes your bullpen, and that started to show. And I think part of the decline and the fall of the Twins the second half of the season was they just kept going back to the well on these guys, and it got to be too much. They got overworked and probably underpaid, I guess, if you want to go with the song. But you need to have pitchers. You need to have some confidence in Joe Ryan, in Sonny Gray, in these guys to be able to go 6-7 innings. You just have to let them do that sometimes. And you know what? If they get enough data that shows, hey, guess what? They're not making it. They can't go that third time through. But give them a chance. When you are really, really on top of things and throwing well and your velocity hasn't gone down tremendously, and again, teach them, coach them about how to throw somebody. Just like in the younger levels, we coach young pitchers. Hey, if you get ahead of somebody 0-2, you're not going to throw them a fastball down the middle of the plate. You're going to nibble an edge. You're going to throw a breaking pitch. You're going to do something. You might bounce one in the dirt, depending if you have runners on base. Be smart about it. Third time through, well, I got this guy out on this pitch before, but I'm probably not going to get him out. I might not get him out in that again. Just understanding some different strategies of the game. What do I know? I'm not a big league manager, I guess. Your Golden Gopher football team, wow. You're undefeated. You're rolling along. You have homecoming. And Purdue, again, not a bad team, but hadn't been looking like some people thought they might. Well, they came to town with a mission. Hey, we're still part of the Big Ten West. Don't just hand the Gophers the crown right now. And really things were laid out for the Gophers. Wisconsin loses again. They fire their head coach. It's all there, and they can still, certainly can still come back and win this Big Ten West. But those are the kind of losses we've grown all too accustomed to here in Minnesota in all of our sports. But the Gophers have been really good at that, of losing a game that they maybe shouldn't, if they really want to show people that they're a quality program and going to stay consistent. You can't lose those games. I'll be honest, a homecoming has never been a favorite thing of mine, whether it's high school or college. I think there's so many distractions and stuff. I get it, but do students understand what homecoming is about, or is it just a reason to act foolish at times and do some things? This is about supporting all of your teams and welcoming back alumni and things like that. And I just don't think that becomes a huge part of it. But when it's such a distraction, I think that takes away a little bit. And not having Mo Ibrahim out with an injury, he's the straw that stirs the drink for the Gophers, and it certainly impacts how you play call and how the other team plays defense. And they forced Tanner Morgan into 3 interceptions, do the Boilermakers, and that, changes things up a lot. So now we go from the idea of, hey, we were undefeated, we could win this game, we could beat Illinois, but Illinois is 4-1. They're not, they beat up on Wisconsin pretty good. Suddenly that Penn State game is a long way down the road, even though it's only 3 weeks away. The Gophers are on a bye this week. They have some time to lick their wounds, but you better get a good game plan together to go down to Champaign and beat the Fighting Illini down there so that you have a chance to make the Penn State game meaningful. If you lose at Illinois, it doesn't matter, and you're going to go on this losing streak. But let's hope the Gophers turn that around and do some nice things. And if they don't play in a Big Ten championship game this year, I would consider the season to be a failure. So go Gophers, but stop letting us down like that. That'd sure be nice. The Wild and the Wolves, both in training camps, getting ready for their seasons. The Wild have played a number of preseason games, and one thing you can say about the Wild so far in the preseason is their scoring has been prolific. They've been putting goals in there left and right, and that's a good thing. And they were doing that a lot of times last year too, but most of the time, or a lot of times last year, they were having to come from behind and score a lot of goals in order to stay in the games or give themselves a chance. And certainly that's not a sustainable way to win professional games. So hopefully they've got some things, they got some things rolling. And again, I have a feeling I was talking to Brad Betterman as I was helping do some color commentary for a local high school football game, and he's a big hockey fan, a Wild fan. And he said, this is kind of one of those, the Wild, were they going to rebuild? Were they going to, they got, some salary cap issues, but he was pretty excited about the season. And he said they have a real chance to do something. They don't have to, a little bit like the Vikings, where you're doing a competitive rebuild maybe without tearing it all down. You're just shuffling a few things and seeing what can happen. So let's hope for the best for the Wild as they get close to starting their season. And, again, the way the NHL playoffs are set up is kind of puzzling at times, but, make a run at things, make some things happen, and maybe there'll be some excitement. Get out of the first round of the playoffs. That'd be awfully nice. Same with the Timberwolves. Longtime Wolves fans have been suffering for a very, very long time. And as we've said on here before, the goal this year with the moves they made has to be a top 4 seed in the Western Conference. And if you can get that top 4 seed, a lot of amazing things could happen and some good things. And you're going to be rocking Target Center, and everybody's going to be excited about the Timberwolves. And then again, get out of the first round. You can't just make it to that point. You have to get out of the first round and show that you are a competitive team, a team that can be consistent and be there all the time. And again, it makes for an exciting winter as the Twins have frittered away. The Vikings are in first place right now. That's a good thing. We hope for excitement throughout their season. But then you say, okay, now we can start to work in the Wild and the Timberwolves, the Gophers. And it can be a lot of good things here in Minnesota. A lot of people traveling to Minneapolis, excited about games, professional and college. And before you know it, it'll be college basketball season for the Gophers as well. And that's the state of Minnesota sports. And now it's time for This Week in Minnesota Sports History. On October 5th, in 1969, the Twins lost to Baltimore 1-0 in 11 innings in Game 2 of the American League Championship Series. In 1970, on October 5th, the Twins lost to Baltimore, finishing the sweep in the ALCS and having lost 6 straight to the Orioles in the playoffs over the 2 years of the ALCS. In 2002, the Twins beat Oakland at the Dome 11-2 to tie the American League Divisional Series 2 games apiece. In 2004, on October 5th, the Twins won at Yankee Stadium. That's right, they won at Yankee Stadium in Game 1 of the American League Divisional Series 2-0 and set a playoff record with 5 double plays in the game. On October 5th, in 2019, the Twins lost Game 2 of the ALDS in New York as the Yankees won 8-2. One of the questionable decisions that Rocco Baldelli made was to put Randy Dobnak in as the starter. He was constantly reminded of his old job as an Uber driver. On October 6th, in 1965, the Twins won Game 1 of the World Series against the Dodgers 8-2 with Mudcat Grant pitching. Sandy Koufax refused to pitch because of Yom Kippur, which was a Jewish holiday. Of course, that didn't matter at the end. He handled the Twins in Game 7. Tony Oliva tied a World Series record with 7 putouts in right field. In 1969, on October 6th, the Twins were swept by Baltimore in the ALCS, 3-0, losing 11-2. The first 2 games were one-run games. They got blown out in the third. In 2002, on October 6th, the Twins beat Oakland 5-4 on the road to win the ALDS 3-2. Denny Hawking, however, injured his hand in the post-game celebration as they were piling on the field and was out for the American League Championship Series against Anaheim. Think about that, though. They played back-to-back, having to travel from Minnesota to Oakland and play back-to-back games. You probably wouldn't see much of that anymore today. In 2009, on October 6th, the Twins played Game 163 at the Metrodome against Detroit, one of the most exciting games in Twins history. And the Twins came out on top 6-5 in 12 innings, the very last regular season game played at the Dome. That was considered a regular season game. On October 7th in 1925, the Washington Senators beat Pittsburgh on the road in Game 1 of the World Series. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the last time a Senators/Twins team, since it's the same franchise, won on the road in the World Series. In 1965, on October 7th, the Twins won Game 2 of the World Series with a 5-1 win over the Dodgers, with Jim Cott beating Sandy Koufax. Enjoy that while it lasted. In 1987, the Twins beat Detroit 8-5 in Game 1 of the ALCS, thanks to a Don Baylor pinch hit single in the 8th to break the tie. It was also the debut of the Homer Hanky. Got plenty of those laying around. I'm sure some of you do as well. On October 7th in 2009, the Twins lost 7-2 at Yankee Stadium in the first ever postseason game played at that new edition of Yankee Stadium. And in 2019, on October 7th, the Twins lost 5-1 to the Yankees at Target Field to get swept out of the American League Divisional Series. On October 8th in 1987, the Twins beat the Tigers 6-3 at the Dome in Game 2 of the ALCS, with Burt Blyleven out-pitching Jack Morris. But wait, on October 8th in 1991, the Twins beat Toronto 5-4 in Game 1 of the ALCS with Jack Morris on the mound, beating him in 87, having him help win the World Series in 91. On October 8th in 2002, the Twins beat the Angels 2-1 at the Metrodome in Game 1 of the ALCS behind Joe Mays pitching. Think about that. Joe Mays. They only had one day off in between the ALDS and the ALCS, and so Joe Mays was the man for that day. Here's your non-baseball one. On October 8th in 2005, Wayne Gretzky got his first win as a coach as his Phoenix Coyotes beat the Minnesota Wild 2-1. On October 9th in 1965, the Dodgers shut out the Twins 4-0 in Game 3 of the World Series. In 1991, the Blue Jays beat the Twins 5-2 in Game 2 of the ALCS. That was a rare loss at home for the Twins in a playoff game. In 2002, on October 9th, the Angels beat the Twins 6-3 in Game 2 of the ALCS at the Dome. It was the largest crowd ever at 55,990 people crammed in there. In 2004, on October 9th, the Yankees came from 4 down early to beat the Twins 6-5 in the 11th inning and win the American League Divisional Series 3-1. On October 9th in 2009, the Twins lost Game 2 of the ALDS 4-3 in 11 innings. They had a 3-1 lead in the 9th against the Yankees, but Joe Nathan gave up a 2-run bomb to A-Rod. Mark Teixeira hit a walk-off home run to win it. On October 10th, my wife Michelle and I got married back in 1998. Happy anniversary. Before then, in 1965, on October 10th, the Dodgers tied the World Series 2 games apiece with a 7-2 win over the Twins in LA. In 1987, on October 10th, the Tigers beat the Twins 7-6 in Detroit in Game 3 of the ALCS. And in 2017, on October 10th, Byron Buxton was awarded the Platinum Glove as the best American League defender. He'd gotten the Gold Glove and then the Platinum Gloves for the best overall defender in the league. On October 11th, in 1900, Washington, D.C. was awarded a baseball franchise. Eventually, of course, 1961, they became the Minnesota Twins. In 1965, on October 11th, Sandy Koufax and the Dodgers shut out the Twins 7-0 in Game 5 of the World Series. In 1968, on October 11th, Billy Martin was named manager of the Minnesota Twins. In 1987, on October 11th, the Twins beat Detroit 5-3 to go up 3-1 in the ALCS. In 1991, the Twins beat Toronto 3-2 in 10 innings on a Mike Pagliarulo home run to go up 2-1 in the ALCS. Mike Pagliarulo, a name from the past. In 2002, on October 11th, the Twins lost Game 3 of the ALCS 2-1 in Anaheim after Troy Gloss hit an 8th-inning home run. And in 2009, on October 11th, the Twins lost 4-1 to the Yankees and were swept in the ALDS. It was the final baseball game ever played at the Metrodome. For my local listeners, this week in Richland, Heartland, Ellendale, Geneva sports, October 6th, cross country is at Waseca. Volleyball is at Janesville. October 7th, it's homecoming. Football team plays at home against the Medford Tigers, looking for their first win of the season. October 10th, volleyball is home against Kenyon Wanamingo. And October 11th, cross country is at Alden. Remember, we stream on the NFHS network for all our home games. A lot of times you can hear me either in the background or doing play-by-play, though I won't be there on October 10th for volleyball. But I invite you to check that out and tune in for our local sports and everything like that. I promised you a special announcement, and this is that. This is my last show. I've decided to hang it up. This is 37 episodes, and I started this back in January, and I've really had a blast doing it, but for a variety of reasons. One of the main ones just being time. This takes a lot of time to put together, and a few other things. I've just decided it's time to put a stop to whatever flips your waffle. I really, really appreciate those of you who've given me some great feedback over time. I appreciate those of you who tune in each and every week, whether it is on 365sportscast.com, whether you check it out on YouTube, Spotify, whatever you do. I do appreciate that. I've met so many wonderful people and had so many great conversations in doing this. And I really want to take a moment and shout out to all these great guests that I've had over time. You go all the way back to January 26th, and Matt Johnson from Twins Almanac was on. He was on a couple different times. Thanks to Matt for helping me dive into what it meant to be an interviewer. Ted Schwartzler of Twins Daily has been on a couple times. Todd Walkingstick out of Owatonna, thanks to him. John Millay from the Minnesota State High School League, a fantastic conversation. The great Carly Wagner, NRHEG Minnesota Golden Gopher basketball standout. She has been on here. Sophie Stork, who graduated this last year, a great interview as well. I had the state wrestlers from NRHEG that were on one week as well. That was a lot of fun. And Carter Martins, too, an NRHEG star who was able to enlighten me a little bit on hockey. I had the Packer brothers on a while back. I know that I tried to get them on again. They've kind of put a little halt to their podcast. Life gets in the way. Shane Moore from Triple Play Sports, he had a podcast. He, too, has kind of come to a halt on that. It's harder than it looks, folks. Todd Dufault was on out of Waseca originally. He's still coaching basketball up in North Branch and having a good time there. Andrew Noor, I got to put a big shout out to Andrew. He's been on here a few times. He saved my bacon at least once. Great guy to talk to with Let's Talk Twins, Let's Talk Vikings, Let's Talk Wolves. A lot of great things. Andrew Phillips was on from NRHEG. Tremendous athlete. He'll be playing baseball at South Dakota State University in 2023-24. It'll be fun to see his career. Brandon Warren from Access Twins has been on here. Troy Ramage has been on a couple times from Vikings Daily. Troy, a great guy to talk to about the Vikings. Lucas Seehofer's been on a couple times talking Lynx, talking the Twins. Lindsey Young, what a fantastic interview with her about mental health, both for just all of us and for athletes as well. She works for the Minnesota Vikings. John Swoll, huge shout out to John. His Twins trivia website is where I got so many of my This Week in Minnesota sports history. I also used a few other sites, but I got so many Twins things. John does a great job there. It's so much fun. I encourage you to check out twinstrivia.com. Jeff Jimenez was on. He, local coach and official, is a lot of fun to talk to. Quinn Van Meldingham, when she went to the state track meet last year from NRHEG, along with Joe Gunderson, who has a Twins Nation podcast. Jeff Reese, legendary baseball coach, and it was a lot of fun to talk to him, and he's since decided to retire, and we wish him the best of luck, too. My sister, Mandy Stafford, came on. Thanks to Mandy giving us some Title IX stuff, some things about professional women's football. Theo Tollefson was on from Twins Daily. Nick Nelson of Twins Daily. I love Twins Daily, folks. If you don't subscribe to their daily email, you should. It's really a great place to go. Trey Wicks, Minnesota Vikings Syndicate. He's got his podcast there on YouTube. Mark Kruger, the NRHEG head football coach, was on. Tony Liebert from Gopher Hole, talking about the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Really a lot of fun talking to him. And I was able to, track down a couple guys. Andrew Ziegler, big Lions fan, came and talked to us. Trace Gerard last week, New Orleans Saints fan, talking to us and everything. So that's been so much fun. Just you meet these people from all over the place. And the biggest thanks of all, these guests have really made my life better. But how about Wyatt Grosskreutz? You probably, if I didn't tell you this, you wouldn't believe he's a senior in high school. He interviews so well. These Wisdom with Wyatt. It's so much fun to sit down with Wyatt, and I'm going to miss doing that. I'm sure he'll still be into We'll Talk Vikings and all kinds of sports all along the way, and I'm going to wish him the very best of luck in what he does. I hope it might involve something in public speaking and some things like that. He does a fine job when it comes to those kind of things. So that's going to do it. This is the last helping of waffles here at 365sportscast.com. Again, I'm glad that you came in and spent an hour. I'm glad you chose to spend any amount of time here with me. I had so much fun talking Minnesota sports. And a reminder: if you ever want to go back and look at previous episodes, listen to them, you can check out YouTube. You can check out Spotify. Look up whatever flips your waffle. If you want to hear some of those interviews, really those are the most fun part of this whole thing. Talking to those kind of people. So there won't be a next week. I'll never say never. You never know. But I do hope that you will continue to watch and support Minnesota sports. And for one last time, this is Mark Domeyer signing off with Syrup.